I recognize it's not on my program. I recognize that those 7 words aren't. I recognize that. The proposed document says in the aggregate in any calendar year. Okay. So it would not be, and this is my fault, so I apologize for the confusion. It's not $30,000 as many times as they want. It's $30,000 in the aggregate in any calendar year. And obviously this will be a topic for discussion if the board approves any clarifying language that would be the language that goes to you.
So what you're saying is they want to be able to spend it one time next year.
$30,000, up to $30,000 in the aggregate in any calendar year.
Okay, whatever it is you use that $30,000 for. So it's like a holding bank on the side.
I'm sorry.
If they want to spend $5,000 6 times, they got a special area for that $30,000.
If they wanted to spend $5,000 6 times, yes, that would be. But right now they can spend $4,999 20 times.
No, we understand it.
Okay.
Okay? We totally understand it, but it only means you can spend $4,999 on one project. You can't make the project go 7 times. Other than that, once you go over that money for one project, you need a vote. And I think as a homeowner, if it's over $5,000, we have a right to vote and know what's going on, not just have it done.
Look, at the end of the day, I don't live here. I don't have a dog in the fight, all right? But I can tell you that the community, for something like this, needs to say, what is, the whole idea is to say material alteration improvement. What is material? Okay, that is the question that this number threshold becomes. I have communities where it's 250,000, and I have communities where it's 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 60. It runs across the board. So I'm not going to sit here and say that 30,000 is low or high. I think it's a matter of the board proposed number which it believes is material, and the membership to make that same conclusion. Okay. It's bigger than here.
Just a real quick question. Wasn't a similar measure for increase of 20? This may be better for the board. Wasn't a similar measure to increase this item to 25,000 presented to the members last year and rejected?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
I can go ahead and address that. I don't think it would be appropriate to say it was rejected. I would think it would be appropriate to say not nearly enough votes came to even come close to
The bottom line, though, and that's a fair distinction. The bottom line, though, it is not approved.
In that same amendment package, because I helped draft it, was the amendment which would have stricken that first mortgaging protection, which is an incredibly good thing. Everyone here should have voted
Right.
for it.
And you're a heck of an attorney, but at the end of the day, that request to increase it to 25,000 was not approved.
It did not receive enough votes. That is it did not receive enough votes. It was not approved, but you're turning into a negative connotation.
Are you and the gentleman agreeing?
I'm sorry,
Can you explain the proposed documents for finding association rights and
Yeah, the question was clarifying the dangerous pet situation. This is somewhat relevant for this community. The current documents provide that, I'll talk off the top of my head. The current documents provide for removal of, I think it's nuisance pets. There is currently a mechanism for the removal of a pet, which is nuisance. I wanted to make sure that there was language in here that said if there's a dog attack, right, on a person or a child or whatnot, that the dog could likewise be removed under the same grounds. So right now, I think the current standard is nuisance. I wanted to make sure that it was expanded to provide for the dangerous pets in terms of attacks and whatnot. That's been a problem in other communities that I've dealt with. Yes?
Like this number to raise it to 30,000 expenses. Also on that capital resale, wasn't that also something that we had not agreed upon? To raise it, facilities, and there weren't enough votes to have that passed?
Was that part of the same?
We spoke about it at a board meeting and it never went any further than that.
So the question I have about raising it to $30,000, why do we have to, and how do we get to that number?
Well, I can address the first part of it for sure, which is that going to the membership for a vote is time-consuming and it's expensive. Right? It's the simple fact that it ties the hands of people that you elect that have a fiduciary duty, okay, to you, to do things which cost $5,001. Again, that is, in my experience, it's a very low number. Right? It's just the simple fact is that spending $5,001, they have to go and mail proxies and notices and schedule the management time, take the management time away from managing the community and spending it towards mailing out notices and proxies, having pay my office to review everything. That's just time consuming and expensive. So that's the legal reason to increase it, it's just that it's low. So I'm not saying that it's bad to have a low threshold. All right, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's low.
So how did they get it?
I'm sorry.
How did the board get to 30,000? Why the magic number of 37?
Well, I mean, if the $30,000 is an issue, I guess, can you see that, what would you like to see? $5,000 is way too low. People are always complaining that we're not getting anything done, and our hands are tied to get it done, and to take everything to the association complete is very time-consuming and very expensive, like Stu said. So, do we have some recommendations of what it could be that we could all agree on? I guess that's the point that we're looking at.
It's okay with you, sir. I think she's let her finish.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying about asking us to come up with a number, but how do we come up with a number based on your experiences to see what projects need to be done that we couldn't get done because there weren't enough votes? We have to give us some sort of information to come up with a particular number. And one other question is, if we don't agree on these documents, we have some exceptions to certain clauses in these documents. Does that mean that documents do not get changed at all?
We can, there's multiple ways of approaching that. I'm sorry, so I'll let you finish your question. There are multiple ways of approaching it. The simplest way is an all or nothing vote, up or down. Right? So having so many good things fail for one bad thing would be unfortunate. Okay? So what you can do is have it be the A or the B. Right? So say, with the exception of 4.2, do you approve the document? Now, regarding 4.2, do you approve this change? Right? And so there's a couple ways that we can go about doing that. It's a little confusing to do it that way, I'm not going to lie, but it can be done so it's not an all or nothing vote. So, the gentleman in the blue hat is next.
Okay, you made a statement earlier where right now, and this is in regards to the $30,000 that everybody seems to be kind of concerned with. As of right now, they can spend up to $5,000 without homeowner approval for 20 times. Is that what you said? No.
I was picking a number. I'll go ahead and read it. So
There's one time for the whole year.
no.
Okay, so there could be 20 projects, right? Okay, there could be 20 projects, and they spend $4,999. That's almost $100,000. Right now, in this new proposal for $30,000, that's all they get for the whole year. If it says aggregate, that's one time they get for the whole year.
Let me go ahead and read what's currently in the document, because I do think it's important, okay? And this helps kind of decide, when I talk about material, this kind of helps decide that. The current documents say the association, by action of its board, may make minor and insubstantial alterations and improvements to the association property, having a cost not in excess of $5,000. All other alterations and improvements must first be approved by a committee, right? So what they're saying is when the developer wrote this, they said minor, insubstantial alterations are things less than $5,000, right? The idea is, what is material? What goes past the threshold of saying, well, this now makes sense to now go to membership? And you're absolutely correct. This does not say in the aggregate that says $5,000. So any minor and insubstantial alteration and improvements, not in excess of $5,000. So you're correct, if there are 20 projects, it would be $100,000. Now, if it is a material alteration, it would be capped at $30,000 for the listed ownership. So it's a year by year thing, I guess. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have, trying to get my head around this. So what you're saying is that 30,000 is spent is not per project per year. It's for all these material alterations and substantial additions in aggregate for the whole year. You got 10 grand here, you got 15 here, you got 5 there. Anytime you go over that, so it's not 30,000 here, 30,000 there, 30,000 there. No. The second thing is, why do you feel it important to change the 2/3 vote to 2/3 of one? Other than the fact that you might have ended up people voting on a certain project, which is not anybody's issue.
This isn't, again, the approval threshold is something that you see the spectrum. Right? There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. I had a condo community of boat slips up in Fort Myers that had required 75% of everybody to make a change. And they never, ever got anything done. Okay, so they reduced it to 51 of the quorum, 51, I can't remember of everybody. But they had, no one got their vote out of that boat slip without voting on the issue, just to reduce that threshold. It just makes it very difficult when you come across things which are difficult for the association to move forward with. There's no good answer other than sometimes amending the documents is necessary.
But then what's to prevent someone, the problem is then you can get a person on one or the other side of the issue, say, you know, all your money's coming in, and with one vote on one side, you end up with 4. But 2/3 of, 200 people would be able to vote.
Your concern is not invalid.
Steve, can I make a comment?
Sure.
The very best reason that I can think of to make that change is that it is nearly impossible to get 2/3 of 580 households to vote on anything. No matter what it is, free ice cream, I don't care. 2/3 of 580 homes, it's virtually impossible. Now, we've been advertising this meeting for the last 3 weeks. We've sent out email blasts, we've done everything but beg people to come. We don't have 10% of the homeowners here. So the very best reason to make that change is if you don't make that change, nothing is going to happen. Nothing, good, bad, or whatever.
Let me just add that I have never seen more than 150 people in this room, okay? Never. And I've lived here for quite a while. That represents the people who are really, really interested in what's going on in the community. I would say if you don't show up for these meetings that have been advertised, you're not interested in what's going on in this community. That 2/3 vote is by the people who are interested in what's going on in the community. Those are the people who really care what happens.
There's a lady in the back. Wait, she's not raising. Yeah.
The attorney was just saying, they're going to avoid costs of public projects. What kind of checks and balances will the board have in place, aside from the meetings, before these projects are approved?
To answer the question without knowing how much internal workings, is that currently there's no restriction on spending the $4,999. With the
It has to be discussed at a public.
right, the board, it has to be by the board as you address it open meeting.
Who is actually checking the fine lines of all this?
Those of us who come to the meetings every month.
Which I do with office legislation.
Yes, sir, that.
I agree that $5,000 is not a lot. But I don't think it's homeowners care, I don't know if that's what the board is give us some examples, or projects over there, you're going to take, couldn't get done because of this $5,000 limit?
The fountain, the front end.
Well, the first one would be the fountain at the front end of the property. If we would have had more dollars to work with, we could have made that much more impressive than it is right now.
And you
Well,
didn't do
that's
Bassett
number one.
Park.
Could you give us two more examples, please?
Bassett Park. Were you going to change the Bassett Park?
Well, Passive Park is another one. We'd like to put some more lighting over there, and we'd like to put some cameras in there so we don't have the problems that we're having with some of the areas. And that's going to cost more than $5,000, and to get a whole group of people together to approve that is almost going to be impossible. The putting green is another. I mean, we have people that would like to have something else put there. Right now, the only thing we can do is maintain it or replace it. We can't change it.
Putting green.
Putting green.
I'm next.
Okay.
I'm next. I'm next.
She's been waiting for very long.
I've been raising my hand and she's been ignoring me.
Okay, I have a question. Last year, when you
I'm next.
told us, okay, I'm sorry, Cal, but last year, what did you ask us to raise it from $5,000 to what? For last
I
year?
believe 2 years ago, it was $15,000.
Originally, it was for 25,000, but then it was reduced because people were present.
Okay, I guess it was originally 25,000, and then people were afraid and it was reduced to 15.
All right, if we had said yes to $15,000 2 years ago, it would be $15,000 again. Why do you have this board here?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are talking about dollars, pennies, in between 5 and 100 ounces. What the hell's the matter with you people?
Hal?
For 12 years, we've gotten along with $5,000.
No, we have.
Too much to get
It's 12 years, and the community has done well, and we haven't changed anything, okay? All of this is propaganda. All I want to do is take away Walt was right, and this gentleman is right, okay? All I want to do is take away your voice so that they can control. You made a misstatement, Mr. Attorney. You said that the people up there were elected. 2/5, 40% of the current board was not elected by the people. You have two people sitting up there who were appointed by the president, okay? So you misspoke. You didn't know what you were talking about.
Nick Randall, last
Don't
I-
give up your voice. Control it. If they want to go out to the community, let them make their case, come to you, take a vote, and let it be.
The bylaws provide that vacancies are filled by the board, so when you vote for people, you vote knowing those people are going to fill vacancies in the board.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I'll go ahead and repeat, sorry. The bylaws provide that vacancies in the board are filled by the board of directors. So when you vote for a board, you also vote for the people who are going to fill vacancies until the next election.
No, that's a legalese. That is correct. What you said, the documents say. Absolutely, I agree. But the board, after the election, if they really wanted to, can tell A to resign, can tell B to resign, appoint C, appoint D, and get the board that they want so that they can control things. But what you say is right. What they did is legal. But what you said is wrong because we did not elect
Hal,
the five people.
can I ask you a question, Hal? About 10 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, we had a board that was sort of like that. And there was no board since then that's been like that. And you know it.
Yes, sir.
I
I'm new to this community, and it seems to me the issues are revolving around governance. So, are there any changes in the documents that are relative to the governance of the HOA, elections and that kind of thing?
Well, the whole document is the governance of the HOA. All three of them are the governance of the HOA. But I can tell you that right now, there's a board of directors of 5 people. All right, they have the authority given to them. Sorry.
Can you repeat his question?
Sorry, the question was, is there any change in the documents regarding the governance of the HOA? And my first comment was that all of it is essentially the governance of the HOA in a way. The current situation is even a board of 5 people who are, they're all at-large directors. They all have a term of office. Those terms are not changing. The size of the board is not changing. The ability to delegate or to hire management to help operate the association is not changing. The notice for board meetings is not changing. Most all of that is dictated by 720, and I couldn't change it if I wanted to. Okay, the governance that we're talking about, or some of these more hot topic items, are how much can the board spend on material alterations without seeking membership approval? You know, those are the types of governance issues. And 720 dictates so much of the governance of the association that there are some variables, and that is one of them.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the financial aspect of these mortgages with the banks foreclose. All right? You say that our documents limit what we can do in order to collect assessments or go after the banks to collect the assessments. All right? 720, the new law, spells out specific steps and things that have to be taken step by step in order to go through the process. Is that correct?
I will elaborate completely on 720. There's no step-by-step process, but there is a statute which sets what the bank is responsible for.
But there's times within 15 days. I don't know because I don't have it in front of me. For example, 15 days approximately, then 30 days later. It lays out things of that nature, doesn't it? What you should do and can do.
I don't want to say yes or no. I'll fully explain the situation. So if you want to finish up, I'll fully explain.
Okay. If our documents are contrary to current law, what dictates?
I'll go ahead and answer the question because there's a little bit of an explanation. The current statute, 723.085, provides that the liability of the first mortgagee, his successor, or sign for past due assessments is limited to the lesser of the following: 12 months of assessments or 1% of the mortgage debt. All right, so let me rephrase that. Right now, the statute says that the first mortgagee or his successor or sign takes title. Their responsibility for assessments is limited to the lesser of 1% of the mortgage or 12 months of assessments. Okay. So it could be $3,000 on an account that has $30,000 past due. Okay. There was a case called UC Bank v. Coral Lakes in 2009, I believe, which said that if the declaration provides less than the statute, the declaration is going to control. The argument of the Second District Court of Appeal in Florida was that, as ridiculous as it is, that the bank relied on the association's documents when it decided to lend money to the owner in that situation. The court said that when the bank lent a couple $100,000, they did so in reliance on the debt contract, the declaration, which said if it had to foreclose, it didn't owe a penny to the association. Right, that was 2009. The statute now remains largely unchanged. Okay? Our firm, we are very successful. We've been very successful since we represent this association, being able to recover as much as we can. You all, I know it because I've dealt with it, you all have been penalized and received less than you could have because of the language in your documents. I will conclusively say that because I was part of the process. where the bank said, well, look at your documents, HOA. You said right there that I don't have to pay you anything. And they said, here's a copy of the Coral Lakes decision, and you can take a goose egg. That has happened. If the language that we're proposing was in the documents, or no language at all, right, then we'd at least have the statute, which would give you a lot more than nothing. Yes, sir.
Being in business, as you know, from past experience, I know it's an excellent idea to update the docs, and I'm negotiating with homeowners associations for reduced settlements all the time. I get that, and that's a great reason to review our docs. I think I can speak for some of my fellow homeowners, I can certainly speak for myself, that what is off-putting is putting in other things, okay, unrelated to updating our documents, that in some cases, the ownership has rejected it or not approved in the past, okay, including people in political positions, whether they be Congress people or homeowners boards, who are doing nice things for no money. But political people do what they always do, and take power from a lot and want to put it in the hands of a little. And I have never in the history of mankind seen people write themselves authority that they don't use. Oh, you don't have to worry about it, Mr. Sherwood. Then don't put it in our documents if you don't have any plan on using your unlimited right to add to the price a buyer has to pay for buying a home. Unlimited, residing with 3 people. You write that in because you plan on using it, okay? Or you want to have the ability to use it. I personally think the $30,000 change is a good idea. I think it stinks that it's being written into a document, okay, that we've been sold for months now. It's crucially important. This is court. This is Congress court. This is the bridge to nowhere, where you guys couldn't pass it as a separate item, so now you're sticking it on something we're being told is very important. And by the way, it is. So that's offensive.
Is offensive is the fact that we got emails and newsletters that said this meeting is so important for the financial stability of this community that you must attend. If you count up the number of items in the documents, there are 19 items here, and only 6 of them are financial. So what does that tell you? This gentleman knows exactly what he's talking about. Don't give up your right to control and to vote. And you never answered the question of that lady right there. What are the projects that you could not complete? I'm still waiting for an answer.
Excuse me, they gave 3 examples.
Well, I'll give you a look.
And then this other gentleman will be back.
Is that microphone working? Is that microphone working? Good evening, folks. Does that work? Okay. I'll just talk a little louder. My name's Ted Craig. I've had the honor of working on this board for 5 years in the past. I know exactly what these people are going through. I know I've sat on the board wondering how we're going to pay for certain things. One of the issues that we had back at that time was Passive Park. We had a lot of vandalism going on. All of the kids ran through Passive Park. We had bids of $14,000 to do upgrades in Passive Park. We could not do them because of this. We tried to piecemeal. We said, well, we'll put in an electrical panel for $5,000. We'll put in this for $5,000. We'll put in this. We'll get it. It's illegal. Now, if it was me, I think the $30,000 is perfectly practical. My question here is, I think it's misleading. It says the proposed declaration restricts the ability of the board to make a material alteration costing more than $30,000. Costing more than $30,000. Okay? Why wouldn't they put, we want to change it from $5,000 to $30,000. You understand? So it's kind of misleading. If I had to vote on the 30,000, I certainly would do so, because I think it's not a lot for this community. Number two, the capital contribution.